Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year,
Happy New Year.
2026. Here we
Wow.
come, Alex.
I know. Okay, talk about feeling old. We live in 2026. When did this happen?
No.
What? We're in the future. What?
Mhm.
I feel like Jetsons times or something.
Well, okay, you just dated yourself there as well right
Right?
now.
Well, but all of our listeners know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, today we're talking about how to inch forward, what to
Mhm,
keep, what to
mhm,
change, and how to enter the new year well.
mhm,
And I think as we're hearing all these things right now about goal setting, and we're all hopeful, and I'm hopeful. I know you're hopeful about what does 2026 hold? And we're excited about it because we're hoping it's a little better than last year.
Yep. Yes, yes, yes.
We're hoping that we can kind of turn the page of a new year. But
Mhm,
I also think we can really set ourselves up for failure. And today, let's talk about actually how to set ourselves up for success and how we do that. That's why we titled this Inching Forward, because I think
mhm,
there is this idea of great gains. But what if the great gain is actually the inch that truly is transformative?
mhm,
So let's talk about that. And as we start today, will you read the serenity prayer?
mhm. Yes. It says, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Mhm.
And we wanted to start with this because this is a big driver for us in this conversation that God gives us agency. And we also have to accept that there are some things that we cannot change or are not ours to change. Both are big hurdles for
Mhm.
women, I think, in our age group that want to take control and also want to make everything better for everyone around us that we love so much, and that sometimes things are not ours to change. So I think about this. I know this is a prayer that's used often in recovery circles. And in some ways, I'm just going to say I'm a little bit in recovery this year of trying to control everything. And at the same time, I don't want to be apathetic,
Mhm.
right? I want to change the things I can that I should or that would be good for me.
And that's really, I think, where that line it says, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Hmm.
So, what have you found, Alex, as far as your process of how do you gain that wisdom? How do we know what is ours to accept and what isn't?
Well, that's the whole midlife dilemma, right? So I think there are in there questions of, can this change? Do I have any control over this? Is this my responsibility to hold? Those are all questions that I think we have to come back to over and over. And the concept, that has really helped me often in decision making is this idea of do what only you can do.
Mhm.
So, is this mine to do? And if it is, then I should do it.
Mhm.
And if it's not, that doesn't mean I don't do it, but maybe I don't have to.
Mhm. I really like the circle of control, which, if you've never heard of that concept, basically there's a circle in the middle and then there's a circle on the outside. And you can literally take post it notes or just write it on a piece of paper. I often have my coaching clients do that. And you write in the middle what is yours to control. And then you
Hmm.
write on the outside circle that is it's concentric circles. You write on the outside circles, and you can have two of them. And maybe the second circle is I can somewhat control these. And then the last circle is what can I not control? And what's interesting, whenever I do this exercise or my clients do, the reason that the middle circle is the middle smallest one is because actually there's just not that much that it ends up
Hmm.
being in that circle that ends up being in our control. It's usually like me, I'm in that circle, but there's a lot of things that aren't in our control. But visually seeing that can be helpful. If you're wondering, like, what's in my control and what's not, visually seeing that on a piece of paper is a very good exercise that you could try.
Hmm. You wrote something down about burnout and stagnation that I thought was very clarifying. Can
Mm.
you read that to us?
Yeah. Burnout often comes from trying to change what needs acceptance.
Mhm.
Stagnation often comes from accepting what needs courage. So let's break each of those two down. So
Mhm.
burnout comes from trying to change what needs acceptance. Alex, how have you found that to be true? Why did that speak to you?
Yeah. So when I think of somebody who's burnout, I think of somebody who's exhausted, who has tried multiple things and they don't seem to be working. So when I think about, okay, if that comes from trying to change what needs acceptance, meaning you can't change it, you have no control over it. Of course, you're going to be burnt out. Of course, you're going to be exhausted. It's like hitting your head against the wall over and over again because this is something that you simply cannot change, and yet you keep trying.
Mhm. You know, Susan David, who wrote the book Emotional Agility, she's out of the Harvard Business School. And that book has sold more than all of Harvard's business school resources combined. I mean, it has just like swept the business world, which is interesting because it's a lot on emotions and it's a
Mhm.
lot on self regulation and how you, it's just what the title speaks to, like how you're emotionally agile in your life. And what she says in there is that until we fully accept reality, we will always be bumping up against whatever it is, whatever the issue is. We think we're moving through it by not accepting it, by resisting it, almost like a rebellion toward it. But actually, we're stunting our growth process. And so, what she talks about in people who are emotionally agile is they accept what is. And that's where I really like that statement. Burnout comes from trying to change what actually needs acceptance. So, what can we just accept? And in that, sometimes we think we're like being waving the white flag, and that's why we're not accepting it because we think somehow that means we're just laying down in it. But
Mhm.
it
We're
doesn't.
losing
Right. Right.
in the
But
winning
it
and losing paradigm, right?
yeah, but instead it just means we're like it's back to the Kelly Flanagan, which I know I've talked about before, but you're not resisting something, you're not grabbing on something the way something should be. That's often what we do. Instead, we're just opening our arms and saying, "This is what is, and God, I invite you right here into this
Mhm.
place." And what Susan David says through Harvard's research is that that's what moves us through something, which I think is really helpful just to know that there's people studying this stuff. And, you know, as we look at emotional agility, I want that. I want
Mhm.
to become more emotionally agile as I'm growing, not
Yeah.
less.
Well, and just thinking on a practical level, like I have a certain amount of energy a day,
Mhm.
a month, a year. And if I am using up my energy on things that aren't going to change, that I really just need to accept, then I'm not going to be using it on the things that will change. In my world of capacity, I have to be mindful of where
Mhm.
I'm putting my energy, whether it's moving my body and actually doing things or just the emotional energy behind
Mhm.
something.
And even I think about, okay, let's just call out like certain situations so that we've both been in this year. So,
Mhm,
like, let's say with aging parents, you know,
mhm,
maybe for a long time, a lot of energy has gone to like fighting this idea that parents are no longer able to do what they once did,
mhm,
rather than just saying, okay, I'm going to accept that. And now within that, I'm not, and that's where we get to the second part of that statement. Stagnation often comes from accepting what needs courage. And so then we can say, okay, I'm not going to be stagnant in this place. I'm actually going to then move forward in these ways. And now we have agency again. And
mhm,
so I look at like my situation, you know, that, okay, physically, I've been in this place and there's a lot I just have to accept. There are some things that aren't going to change. But now I can let that drive me to stagnation Or I can say, okay, but where is my agency? Now we're back to the circle of control. What
Mhm.
is mine to control? And maybe I can't totally control the way that my leg moves, but what I can control are my attitude around it. Whether or not I keep doing my exercises, whether I'm grateful for the amount of movement I have, not what I don't have, but what I have, the things that I can do as opposed to things that I can't do. I mean, this is all a part of mindset too, but that's practically, I think, how it plays out.
Mhm. Do you think, just from your work experience, life experience, that people tend toward one or the other, either burnout or stagnation? Like, people either have a hard time accepting what they, are trying to change, or that they tend to accept too much and not step into that hard place of courage?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. In fact, Eric and I were just talking about that this morning. We were reading a devotional that you gave me that I
Mhm.
love, but we were talking about that. Like, there is some just reality that some personalities are more prone to certain thought patterns than others. But that doesn't mean we're stuck there. It just means that we may have unique challenges because of that. Like, one person's unique challenge may be acceptance, whereas another person's like, oh, I'm accepting everything,
Mhm.
but now I'm stuck, you know?
Mhm.
So I absolutely think that.
Mhm. Yeah, because when I looked at that kind of dichotomy of the 2, I
Mhm,
thought, "Oh, I'm probably lean more towards being more accepting, and
mhm,
in that I get stuck because I can get to the point where I give up." You know, like,
mhm.
you're so accepting that you think, "Why even bother?" And
Yes.
that's not good. I mean, this gets back to God gives us agency, and He does want us to be moving deeper into Him. So then it becomes, okay, well, what am I moving towards and why? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about if we do want to have some change in an area of our life and we have determined, okay, I probably have accepted what I can't change, but here are some things I can. How does one start in the inching forward rather than the leaping forward? How does one start to make some changes?
Well, and I want to get really practical because
Mhm,
I mean that's part of our goal for this episode is that we give you some practical tools. And I already gave you one. The circle of control I think is really helpful, but I would put that on a piece of paper. But then I would say write these statements. This I accept, and then fill it in, like have a, just literally write this I accept and write what you're going to work on accepting. And then underneath it, write this I can change. And then you write that. What
mhm,
can you change? And I know, Alex, you're reading Atomic Habits right now.
mhm.
And, there's a reason it has sold millions upon millions. I mean, truly, at this point, it's a global international bestseller. What are you learning about what works when it comes to change? I mean, this is a
Mhm.
book I love and I teach on a lot. What are you learning?
Yes, well, I'm just starting it, so I just in the early stages, but I think I've got they do a good job at the beginning of kind of laying out the basic principles. That the focus should be on systems rather than outcome, and probably for lots of reasons, like, you probably give up more easily if you don't feel like you see any change coming, even though you're working at a change that's gonna move you in that direction. Also, if you reach your goal, then why keep doing whatever habit you are trying to put in place?
Mhm.
And I will say that I had a moment when I was reading the book. They talk about an ice cube
Mhm.
melting and that at 32 degrees it starts to melt, but if you take it out of the fridge and it's kind of warming up, you may not notice the change, but then at 32 degrees, you notice all of a sudden that it's melting. And this last year, especially probably the last 4 months, 5 months, I've been working out more regularly without the goal of, like, I wanna get into a smaller pant size or I wanna be the same size I was 2 years ago. I've kind of just I'm trying
You've
to accept.
accepted.
Yes,
You've
I've
accepted.
accepted that my body is changing, but what I want is I wanna feel good every day. I wanna have good energy every day. And so I have been more disciplined in sticking to my workout routine. And I kind of had that ice cube moment, that 32-degree moment one day when I looked in the mirror and I was like, "Oh my gosh, my body has changed in a way that I like." Like, it looks healthier, it looks more toned, but that wasn't my goal. My
Mhm.
goal was to be healthy, to be a person who has healthy habits.
Mhm.
And in the end, some of those results that maybe if I were to name like my long-term, maybe more superficial goals, um, I'm getting those benefits anyway. But really, it was more just doing the thing every day and putting that system in place and not being so worried about what the end result was, but just doing it because it was good for me to do in the moment.
Yeah, it gets to a lot of things. I mean, one is when we talk about atomic habits, I mean, he basically says, make it easy. So,
Mhm.
have your trigger. What's your cue? Which Charles Duhigg talks about that as well in his book about habits. But what is your cue that signals you? So, Alex, what was your cue to work out?
Feeling the stress in my body.
Mm.
I
Hmm.
mean, for sure, there was an immediate gratification. Every day I felt better, and I don't know, honestly, if I would have had the discipline, if I didn't feel an increased level of stress and therefore an increased desire for that immediate gratification of feeling less stressed. Like, just it
Yeah.
was just a super practical immediate gratification that
Well,
I
this is interesting because
benefit
that's
from.
your reward, which
Mhm.
he also talks about, like, you have to have
Mhm.
a reward. That was your reward. How did you practically set yourself up to do that? Like, did you put your running shoes somewhere? Did you have it by your coffee? Like, what was your trigger in that?
No, I would say none of those things were that different, except one thing in my life did change. One of our daughters, who I drove to high school every day, got her driver's license. So it
Mhm.
freed up time in my morning. And
Mhm.
so that I was able to switch out a routine. So I saw an opportunity there to
Mhm.
say, okay, I can start my workout 15 minutes before she's leaving and I don't have to interrupt it halfway through. Like, it just never was quite working with what time I needed to be ready for work. And so then I would just not do it at all.
Mhm.
And because of that shift in our family schedule, I saw an opportunity and it worked better and easier because
Mhm.
the other option was for me to just get up half an hour earlier. And that was not easy under the easy button. That was not easy for me. I was already like at my max as far as how early I could get up realistically.
Well, so I think this, and that gets to an important point, I think, in atomic habit, as people are looking at, like, how do I make something easy? Because
Mhm.
really, that is how you set yourself up for success. You have to look at, what is my schedule? How can I make this so it's not a heavy lift? Because
Mhm.
if it's a heavy lift, we just don't do it over time. We may do it for a week, but then we don't keep doing it.
Yeah.
So, like Alex, for you, what is shifting in your life that maybe opens up an opportunity? Or, how do you lower your bar so that, again, you're not failing by lowering your bar. You're actually winning because now that your bar is lowered, you're actually going to jump over it. You're going to do it. So
Mhm.
let's say that you've in the past said, well, I'm working out an hour every day. Well, that bar is pretty high. How are you gonna reach that bar every day if your schedule doesn't allow for an hour every day? So what if
Mhm.
instead you say, I'm gonna work out 20 minutes every day? Now your bar is lowered, but that's a bar you can jump over every day. So I think as we look at, like, how do we set ourselves up for success? I mean, James Clear talks about, have a cue of some kind, like it's going to remind you to do it.
Mhm.
Have a reward. So, I mean, for you, the reward was actually how you felt. But some
Mhm.
people, they like won't have their coffee till they do it, or
Mhm.
they have a favorite protein shake, or they do it with a friend, whatever. Have some kind of reward that you can do, and then just don't make your brain think about it. So
Mhm.
know when you're going to do something. So, for example, for me, if I have my book that I'm reading in the morning, my quiet time stuff set out, like I have a plan of what I'm doing and I know what I'm doing, well, now my brain doesn't have to think about it. Now I've
Mhm.
just lowered the bar. So those are just a couple of examples. But I think as we look at like, as we want to make a change, how do we make the change? And
Mhm.
that inch forward rather than the mile forward is just a good thing to keep in mind.
Mhm. Yeah, the other thing that has stuck with me is the idea of I am a person who. Getting
Yes.
to this whole identity thing because they talk about what
Mhm.
motivates you to and I've been thinking a lot about that, like, okay, because I am a person who tends to be like, "Eh, I don't know if that's ever gonna make a difference, so I'm not even gonna try." I mean,
Mhm.
that's me on an extreme, but for argument's sake, like, I can go there to instead say, "No, I am a person who has clean windows." Let's just use something super dumb that I just don't even bother doing because I feel like, I'll wash the windows and then they'll just get dirty again." But to say, "No, I am a person who has clean windows." Okay, that means I need to go clean them right now. It's so
Yes.
dumb. It's so dumb. And I think it could work sometimes and not always. So, tell me when you think that actually works. Like, what makes that work for someone?
Because there it's switching to an identity-based habit. So,
Mhm.
what we know is that well, and they've done a lot of research around this, is that with smokers, for example, if you
Mhm.
just say, "I'm gonna stop smoking." This is why dieting actually doesn't work, because as
Mhm.
soon as you focus on something, as soon as you say, "I can't have that," now your brain is like, "I want it."
Yeah.
Because anytime you're like trying to just trying to do a negative thought, it does not work in the brain.
Mhm.
Like neuroscientifically, it doesn't work. You have to replace it with something. You have to actually say, "Well, I want this," or "I'm going in this direction." You can't just do the negative. And so when we look at why does that work for a smoker, rather to say, "I am a person who is healthy," or "I am a person who doesn't smoke," as opposed to "I'm not going to smoke," or "I don't want to smoke," or whatever it is, whatever that person says, because that identity based is totally different in the heart and the brain, which I think is
Mhm.
fascinating. And you replace it with something. So if you're not a person who smokes, well, now, like, I am a person who is healthy, who treats my body well. I'm a
Mhm.
person who values my lungs. I mean, whatever it is
Mhm.
that motivates that person. That is so different. And again, if it all goes back to what happens in the 6 inches between our ears, right?
Mhm.
Our brain is what's controlling all this stuff. It's like the command center. And so, how do we help our brains to make a change? And it could be small. And I actually like your window example because I think it gets to the smallest thing inches us forward.
Mhm.
Because now you look out the window and you're like, wow, I'm really enjoying looking out that window.
I can see.
Yes, and that actually feels good, and now
Yeah.
you feel a little bit better about life and
Mhm.
yourself because you're the person who's has clean windows.
Yeah.
That's a great example. It
Yeah.
really is. I mean, it could be the smallest thing, but it makes over time a big difference. So it can be practical like that, or you can say, I am a person who regulates my emotions in
Mhm.
2026.
Mhm.
I am a person who is not going to fly off the handle all the time. I'm actually a person who is going to name my emotions because we know that when you name emotions, it lessens them by 50%, even
Mhm.
just by calling them out.
Mhm.
So I'm a person who's going to name my emotions. I'm going to accept what is, and I'm going to move through it in a
Mhm.
way that makes me proud and aligns with my values.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
life changing.
Yeah. I was asking one of my girls this week, was I a yeller? Like, I just wanted to know, like, what's your memory of me as a mom? And she thought about it and she's like, well, I remember you always apologized right away after you did. And I think I have tried the last several years to be more mindful of, no, I am a parent who doesn't yell. But also, I thought, oh, I think I have always been a parent who has been pretty quick to ask for forgiveness. So
It's
just thinking
beautiful.
too, like in our relationships, like who are the people we
Mhm.
want to be? And as you were talking, I don't want to over spiritualize this, but at the same time, there is something really profound about we try so hard to fill our life with things that are meeting our deepest yearnings.
Mm.
And we can fill them with things that are not good for us, not healthy for us. We all do it, right? It's our sinful nature. It's our separation from God. It's our attempt to take control and replace God with other things. And when we name those things and actively try to remove them, God always offers a good thing in its place. So
It's
when you're
beautiful.
saying, that it's more effective if we don't just say we can't have this thing that we know is bad for us, but we also say, because we're putting on this identity, that's so spiritual to me because
Mhm.
for everything that we take away that is not good for us, God offers us something good. It may not be exactly what we are asking for, but it is good for us and it's good in us and doing a good work in us. So
Mhm.
I think this
Amen.
just it has layers, right? It can be so super practical, like washing windows, but it can also be so much deeper in who we are. And as I think about who maybe pushed play on this episode of Inching Forward, somebody who thinks, I can't take that huge leap because I am barely crawling into the new year.
Mhm.
I am barely
Mhm.
moving into change. We want you to hear that this is for you too, that this isn't just like, hey, here's your 10-point plan for a better life. Go do it. Go work harder at a better life. But that these small incremental steps are where God meets us too.
That's right. That's right. And I think what I like about it is he gives us that power and grace for those small steps. He does.
Mhm,
When we commit them to him, he will provide the way to do it. And as you were talking about, we look for kind of those easy things. I read a lot about dopamine and
mm,
how dopamine works in the brain. And when we don't earn our dopamine, bad things happen. So think of anything that has to do with addiction. So
mhm.
drugs, alcohol, pornography,
Gambling.
shopping,
Mhm,
gambling, like excessive shopping, anything in excess basically that we're
mhm.
looking getting
Instagram.
phones. Yeah, I was going to say like our phones, anything where we're getting easy dopamine hits, that is escapism often, like we're turning to that for an
Mhm,
easy dopamine hit, and that's actually really bad for our brains, and it's training addiction. Whereas when we earn our dopamine, so like we go sit on a cliff at sunrise and we watch the sunrise, or we go on a run, or not even a run, just get on a bike or lift weights or whatever it is, like whatever, earning dopamine is really good. And we get those, like what you were saying, you over time doing your workout over and over again, you are earning your dopamine. That's
mhm,
a natural, healthy way for us to get that in the brain. But I think as we look at 2026, I'm going to put a little challenge out there of like,
mhm,
how do we in a healthy way earn our dopamine? Because that's just practical. And that is something that we all have to be aware of because we're all addicted to our technology, but
mhm,
also some of these other easy buttons that actually
mhm,
aren't good for us.
mhm. Yeah, and we've talked about this before, that some things are easier for us to be kinda judgy about, like, "Oh, yeah, clearly drug use. Nobody wants to."
Mhm.
But I will name it, my phone is my go-to. And would you say, among other things, I mean, but I think something that probably a lot of our listeners can relate to is the phone. Would you say this idea of replacing, I like
Mhm.
if we said for every time that I reach for my phone and we think about when our triggers are, like my trigger might be in the car at a stoplight, that then I should not have my phone within arm's reach if I want to make it easy to change that
Mm,
habit. But then should I try to replace it with something when I'm having that temptation of I'm bored, I want some kind of stimulation. That's what I'm looking for, right? Like I want my
mhm.
brain to be thinking about something other than the fact that I'm sitting at this stoplight, that I should replace it with something that is good. Like, and again, this sounds overly spiritual, but like praying for somebody. Or what else could I do in that time? Memorizing something, or I
You're
don't know.
actually no, that is key because what you're doing as and this is one of my personal challenges is for 2026 to come up with my if then statements. So
Okay.
that's part of how we can practically switch that. So you say, if don't make your brain think hard. I mean, that's the whole
Mhm.
goal because if the brain has to think hard, it won't in that moment. And so we have to pre-decide. So if I'm at a stoplight, then I'm going to do this. So I mean, this is just a practical thing I've done in the last couple of years. If I'm in a line at Costco, then I will help people and I will talk to people. So that's
Mhm.
one of my like super simple if thens. I've just
Mhm.
decided I don't want to be a person who's always pulling out my phone.
Mhm.
And I want to be disciplined about that because I want to be kind of in the world, in community, like we used to be back in the 80s and 90s.
The old days.
Like, yeah, like we would talk
Olden
to
days.
people in the grocery stores in line.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to be disciplined. So that's one of my if thens. So I want to create some of my if thens. So like that is a
Mhm.
great example what you just said. So Alex, fill in that blank. If you're at a
Mhm.
stoplight, then what?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, the thing that came to mind was praying for somebody. Yeah, and part of me is like, "Oh, but I don't like that answer because I would rather read something or I'd rather be have input." And I think that's part of the challenge too, is we wanna be entertained. That's really what I want. I want to be entertained by the world, and if I want to be entertained, then I need to do something else. So, yeah, the other part is, like, I do use my map feature a lot.
Mhm.
So, are there things I can do to my phone to allow my map feature to be on, but not allow everything else to be on? So, things like that, that if I set it up ahead of time, again, makes it easier
Mhm.
and less tempting.
Well, and one of the things Harvard says is that, and they talk about mindfulness, which I think from a Christian standpoint, we can translate that in our own, in whatever way people feel comfortable doing that. But one of the things Harvard talks about is be more present where your feet are.
Mhm.
So, as a way to combat kind of this constant dopamine, and again, we all are like this is not a like you. This is a we. This is for anyone listening. Like this is
Mhm.
Alex, me, the whole world. Like we're all there. We're all in it together. But one of the things they say is, when you're listening to music, like for example, put on instrumental music and really listen to it. Hear the violins, hear the piano, hear the cello, hear that whatever when you're talking to someone, really look at them.
Mhm.
They encourage for 1 minute a day, just stare at like a view or your shoe
Mhm.
or whatever it is and just stare at it.
Mhm.
Just for us to really slow our brains down and give ourselves some rest
Mhm.
and practice that be present where you are, which I think is a really good call for all of us who are
Mhm.
losing that ability.
Mhm. Yeah, which makes me think, at the stoplight, I should just be looking around. That should be the answer.
Yeah.
Look around, but then I still can pray for the people working in that building or in the car
Mhm,
next to me, or to pay attention to my surroundings and not be so entertained all the time because 'cause I'm
mhm,
constantly looking for stimulation, which could mean I'm listening to a podcast or I'm
mhm,
doing something, and my brain does need that rest.
mhm. Okay, well, Alex, as
Mhm.
we're headed into 2026,
Mhm.
let's talk about just 3 questions people can ask. What can I start doing? What can I stop doing? What can I keep doing? Again, we're going really practical. Do you have any other
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
Mhm. Well, I think I'm a person who sometimes struggles with saying what I want, even knowing what I want. And so I think that last question, what do I stop doing, can be a starting point. If you feel like, wait, I can't even ask, what do I want to start doing? Because there's that I want to start element that can be a block. So sometimes it's easier to know what's not working and what you want to stop. So if you struggle like I do with saying, I don't even know what I'm working towards,
Mm.
maybe evaluating in some of those reflection things we talked about earlier, evaluating what is and saying, but I know what needs to change. So I know this needs to stop. Maybe that's your first question.
I love that. It's great and easy. I mean, that tool, I ask Eric that a lot to him. Like, Eric, what can I start doing? What can I stop doing? What can I keep doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's been a good way for us to frame up feedback, even in our marriage. But you can use it at work. You
Mm-hmm.
can use it with your kids. It's so helpful to hear. It's very interesting, actually, to hear what your kids say to
Mm-hmm.
those. And you can use it with yourself. And so, as you're looking at 2026, I think our encouragement to you is inch forward. Don't feel like you have to run a mile in a second, but just let's all together take those little inches. And in
Mm-hmm.
that, we find that we actually get way further over time. The benefit of that is we transform inside of us as we're inching forward. I mean, how
Mm-hmm.
do you get to a summit on a mountain? You take step by step by step by step. And that's how you get there. I mean, I think on Kilimanjaro, I think I read it was like 40,000 steps or something, but if I hadn't taken each tiny step, I never would have gotten there.
Mm-hmm.
What's your charge to people, Alex?
Well, I'm thinking about the person who's listening who's like, I have a mountain that's never going to be surmountable. I am so
Mhm.
overwhelmed with this one particular area of my life. And I would say if it feels overwhelming, remember that the system rather than the end goal, and that maybe what can help you decide what your system is and your habit is what kind of person do I want to be? So this
Mhm.
mountain may not move. It may be there and I may not ever summit it, but
Mhm.
how do I want to be known as I continue to face this mountain? What kind of person do I want to be? That may help shape the decisions around your habits and the way that you tackle things.
I love it. Yeah. Amen. Alex, will you say a little prayer for people as
Mhm.
they go into 2026?
Mhm. God, it is a gift to be alive. And I know we have some people who may really be struggling as they go into 2026, that they may feel like, gosh, life is not working out the way that I thought it was going to, and are not excited about what lies ahead this year. We ask for your peace to be with them, for them to know that you have been traveling with them this whole time. You are with them today, and you will be with them throughout the year, no matter what the mountain is. And we ask that for everyone, Lord, you provide us with that next step, with a vision of the kind of people you want us to be, and that we can use that as a motivator to make changes and to not be stagnant, and also to release things that are not ours to hold. So, Lord, as we stand in this tension of recognizing what we can control and what we can't, we ask for your wisdom and for your eyes and ears so that we may be people who love you more and love each other more in 2026. We ask for Jesus' mercy in all of the work that we're doing and in the ways that we are living our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.